All right. Welcome, everybody, to the weekly Probate Master Group coaching call. Malcolm was one of our punctual first here, and he's got a few questions. So let's jump right in. How can we help you today?
Awesome. Thank you. So I've been running into, I don't necessarily know if it's a problem, but I've been running into a scenario where I'm seeing that the fiduciary on file is also deceased. So you've got the decedent, and then the fiduciary on file is also deceased, and I can't find anybody. It's like there's the decedent that's dead, the fiduciary is dead, and there's no attorney on file. So in a situation like that, what would be your approach to sort out what's going on?
How many times have you seen that?
I would say I've seen it about 7 times this week.
In a week?
Well, it's not all from this week. It's data that I've mined from January 1st up till now.
Okay. All right. That's where I was headed. Like, where's your list coming from? It happens. I mean, it's life, right? But to have it happen 7 times in one market in 1 week would be a record for sure. But you're talking about, just to be clear for everybody else, over the last 6-7 months, you found at least 7 occurrences where the personal representative has passed away before probate closed.
Yeah.
So the best thing we can do, and the ones that don't have attorneys, like, that's not a resource. We can start with skip trace tools. You can use Spokio and Tellius and just try to find next of kin and just start getting the story. If you can get family members to engage with you and say, who do you think is next in the line of succession that I could call and help you guys get back on track. I realize this must be a double shock to you, but how can I help you guys get this back on track? Because those families probably need our help more than anyone, right? So, and Dave Gwynn, I think I saw in the chat, Dave had a suggestion, skipgenie.com, and I actually haven't used that one. Dave, feel free to jump in if you want to share your experience with it. But
Skip Tracer.
What's that?
I said I wrote my own.
Of course you did. So Dave Gwynn, you need to use the balcony.
If Dave didn't have a question, because I've been sitting on these. So my next question was, again, based on the data that I'm getting, I'm finding that I'm seeing, I would say roughly, I'm going to say 30% of the cases that I'm getting on file, the attorney is filing on behalf of the fiduciary. So you have the attorney on file, and under the fiduciary's name, it's also the attorney. What would be your approach in handling that record? I didn't know if I should just throw it away or if I should call the attorney or what to do.
No. Typically those are public rep, they're public representatives. So a lot of times that's a signal that there is no family or there's infighting in the family. So it's less emotional, more logical. The judge, the attorney, and the court says again. So oftentimes those can be some of the best referrals or the best ones to go after, because you don't have the emotions of multiple family members. It's a B2B transaction. So we actually have that you can join as an affiliate member. You can join like fiduciary groups where they do this professionally for the families for the estates that did not have next of kin, like there's nobody in the succession line, or the people in the line of succession are fighting, and the judge says, everybody take a seat, you're on the sidelines, we're putting this guy in the quarterback. So approaching them with the how can my small business help your small business mindset is the way. So what can you do to provide value to a fiduciary that's getting multiple cases each month? Like, they have a lot of redundancy. What are the things that you can offer them to take away some of the redundancy and maximize the asset base to protect that legal fiduciary relationship they have with the estate? So show them how you ethically and aggressively approach this to maximize equity, and that helps them in turn they get to turn more cases, more revenue, and scale their business. So similar to the attorney conversation. So it's here's how my small business can help your small business, but ultimately with both of our goals being ethically living up to the fiduciary relationship you're held accountable for.
Okay, yeah, I definitely can use that. Okay, I promise everybody I don't have that many more questions, but I'm still locked.
You said 8 in the beginning. We've gotten through 2.
I did.
There's a 6-pack left.
I came ready. So another question I had was, I've noticed again in my data that there's one particular attorney. I mean, he is killing it. Like, I mean, I'm seeing his name everywhere, right? I mean, this guy's definitely a whale. and I'm anxious to approach him, and I'm kind of nervous to approach him because I'm wondering, because I see him, so many times.
What are you nervous about?
Well, I'm concerned that if I approach him and try to, create that, that referral relationship, he's already getting so much business as it is. I don't know how he's getting it.
And so let's go back to that. That's thinking and just quit that. Like, you've already fucked it up. You don't know him. So you've already failed at this, right? So what you're so afraid of is what you already have. How bad is it?
Oh, you're right.
So just cut that off. That's not an option. Maybe you do business with him 3 years from now. Maybe you do it next week, but quit being afraid of what you already have.
Okay. All right. You're right.
Oh, no. We can continue on that. But yes, great job finding that person. Now, how can you provide the most value to his business and bring real value that no one else has?
By doing everything taught in the course.
Right. So take those ideas, the things we talk about, the way, like offering to bring him a referral, like bring him an estate planning referral. Go find a high net worth individual from your family or your sphere of influence or your clients list or whoever that might be. Hell, go play golf and find somebody who needs one, but walk in the door with a referral, or sit down and design, like collaborate on a marketing piece that helps him get through the anti-solicitation loopholes. So start stuffing his information in your mailers. You have that big list. How many of those are pro se or don't have legal representation?
As of yesterday, pro se, I've got 150.
Okay. So something you can do is walk into that attorney's office and say, listen, there's 150 families that are out there blindly trying to find their way through probate. I understand that in your side of the industry, there's anti-solicitation limitations. So I'd like to do a collaborative marketing campaign where we present you as the attorney, we present me as everything non-legal, and both of us win. Can I pay for your next marketing campaign? And find something. They've got to contribute something. You need a reason to be in their office face to face. Maybe that's a video where you throw up a landing page that's the probatestruggle.com or whatever that might be, and you guys do a collaborative video and point people to the landing page, and then you call that out in a postcard or in a direct mail piece that says, a lot of families struggle through this. Find out how you can find out how to get out of the struggle by going to thisdomain.com. But find a way to collaborate with them in person and build that organic relationship. And you'll be laughing at your doubt of, well, maybe I'm not good enough to get this one. Like, you got this, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Like I said, I was just nervous because I'm like, man, this guy's already, he's just killing it. So, what can I bring him that he doesn't already have? But, like you said.
So the reason I'm so quick to criticize when I see people doing that, it goes all the way back to my first real estate job. And I grew up not wealthy, at the base of a ski resort where wealthy people were, right? And I got into real estate and all of a sudden found myself having multiple conversations a day with millionaires and multimillionaires. And I let it intimidate me and I let it limit me. And one day I was like, you know what? You live here. They're trying to buy the lifestyle that you've lived your whole damn life. Just be yourself. Just believe. And like when I approached high net worth individuals with confidence, I got a completely different result, and I let every sales team on. And that's kind of what you're doing to yourself, right? You're making that person bigger than life. They're a small business owner who is unemployed every damn morning, and they have it tougher than we. They're 100% reliant on good, authentic relationships that result in referrals. And so just bring him down to size. He's just an attorney that did some things right and he's doing well. He will have struggles. He will fall, and he'll have the same challenges you go through. Approach him with that business owner to business owner mindset, and how can I help you? And it'll make it less intimidating. But the reason I have kind of an emotional response to that is I shorted myself. I limited myself so much, and it was only for a period of probably 3 to 6 months before I figured it out. And I'm like, all right, that's no way to be thinking. And by the time I moved to Maui, I was like confidently approaching billionaires, and I still do. They're just people. They're all looking for the same thing.
Right. And that was a good idea for the probatestruggle.com. I went ahead and bought it. So, oh yeah, I don't play around. I don't play around. Oh yeah, I don't play around. So the next question was, so again, out of this data, I've found that close to 3,000 cases between January up to now, they're all closed. And I was wondering, would you even bother approaching those homeowners? Because I figured, maybe they may still have the house, maybe.
So there's some in there. Some will. And Dave Gwynn's in one of those markets where usually by the time anyone gets the probate data, it's probate is closed and there's been an interfamily transfer, like there's been a transfer, but the house is still there and the motivation to sell is still present. There's also companies that sell what they call an inheritance list, and that's essentially what that is. So probate has closed, the asset has been inherited, and the distribution has happened. So there's certainly deals in the list. The other thing that list is really good for is raising private money. So if on like with whatever the average estate might be in your market times, how many did you say it was? 3,000?
Yeah, 3,000.
Like how many private money leads, or how many private lender leads are in there? So if you are looking for capital or your investors are looking for capital, you can run a specific type of campaign to those. So it's fair to assume that since probate is closed, the distribution has been made and they've gotten some cash and they've gotten some assets. So don't think about it just as a real estate transfer. Think about the cash too. So those are really good referrals to your registered investment advisor. They're really good referrals to your estate planning attorney. They're really good opportunities for you to raise private capital and continue to serve those families and show them how to grow that generational wealth.
Awesome. Awesome. And this is the last one, and it's completely unrelated to probate. And if need be, we can, kind of tail it towards the end of the call. But I was kind of hoping you could recanvas your foreclosure conversation framework. You kind of touched on it last week, and I wrote as much of it as I could. But sometimes you drop those gems, man. So I gotta keep asking.
Yeah. So for me, and we can pull that mind map up here. I'll find it. But the methodology was to develop that of my own self-criticism. Like I would approach people with kind of a selfish approach of I'm going to get that house. And what I realized is almost everyone in foreclosure think that they're not going to get foreclosed on. And there's a lot of psychology at play. So I would, in my experience, 99% of them want to stay in the home and want to continue living there. And that's what we want for them too, right? Like we don't want to kick people out of their houses. But the reality is at some point, the sheriff is going to intervene and, and they're going to have a rude awakening on that day. And I've seen that happen. People literally just completely lost moving into these crappy little, weekly stay hotels because they just put their head in the sand and they refused to admit what was happening. So all that said, I found that approaching them and not going along with it, but understanding that they have to come to their own realization in their mind, oh shit, this is real and it's going to happen. The question of, hey, listen, I noticed that you're probably getting a lot of phone calls. This one's going to be a lot different. And I just have one question for you. Would you like to keep the home, or would you like to stay in your home and keep it, or would you like to sell it and get a fresh start? And then just be absolutely quiet. Do not say a word. And like what they say next, you can immediately start to gather what their emotional state is, what their financial situation is, how far behind or how deep their head is in the sand. And then you start to navigate the conversation, an emotional conversation with a logical track. And let me jump over and grab that mind map so we can take a look at it. And I do this with almost every lead type, but foreclosure is where I learned it, and then later applied it to probate. Back to Zoom. All right, you guys have my screen now?
Yes.
All right, so this is a work in progress. This is just a rough outline, but in my head, so this is any and every conversation. So we know there's real estate, yes. We know there's debt, yes. So from this branch out is where, so you have real estate, you have debt, and our payments current, no. So basically this branch represents the foreclosure situation. So the first thing we're trying to find out is there equity? But we don't, because of this is a sensitive emotional conversation, we don't just want to come out and ask this of these people, right? Like we need to find a balance between appealing to their sensitive emotional state and getting the logical information we need. So that's one of the reasons I hate scripts so much, is because it's, you know, like people go out and they fire too early. So it's about reading the conversation. So, okay, we know you're behind on payments. We saw that in the notice of default. We don't really need to have that conversation, which is an embarrassing conversation and can drive them inward where you're not getting the engagement. So there's some things we know through deduction, like the way that we got the list. So letting them know that they're, you know, that's nothing to be embarrassed about. A lot, like 9 million other people are in that situation, whatever that might be. And the fact that, like, when I say you, I'm sure you've had conversations, and I just want to let you know this one's going to be a lot different. So I'm trying to get away from that preconceived reputation that they've given me because of everyone else who's muddied the water and tried. I want to let them know this is more of a consultation. This is not, it's not me trying to scare the shit out of you to get you to do something, you know, that benefits me. So the first thing you're trying to figure out, is there equity? Yes or no. If they're behind on payments, so they're behind on payments, there is equity, then we just need to figure out how can we get them out before the foreclosure date, right? Like, how far behind are they? What's their target date? How quickly can they find another suitable living situation? If it's less than 30 days, we got to bring cash in and close this thing fast. If we have a short fuse deal, 60 to 90 days, we can probably get them out as a broker. If it's long term, like if they're willing to wait a long time for the solution, but we need to get it in place quickly, this is a great place for creative financing. So we can put a second, like a wrap, we can do sub 2, or we could do a lease option. The more common scenario, and this is there's a lot more of these scenarios right now than there was in 2008 through 12. There, you know, because of the massive amounts of money printing that the Fed has done, a lot of folks do have equity this time. And even before the COVID lockdown, we had higher equity levels than almost any other period, because we had the deleveraging in 2008 through 12, and we tightened lending guidelines. So you're going to have this conversation a lot more now than you did in that 8 to 12 period. But the ones who really are stuck are, you know, they aren't current on payments. There is no equity. And from here, if you have less than 30 days, like this is a short fuse, there's no equity in it. So if they're in an absolute real hurry, can we transition it to a rental property and somehow bring the thing current so they could, you know, if 1 to 6 months, we're going to do short sale in that scenario. The outcome here too is if you can't do this, it's going to the courthouse usually. And then longer term, the creative financing. So we can do a second, a wrap, a lease option, or a sub 2. If you had a more specific question, or if you were just looking to get back to this, did you get what you need?
So the question was like, okay, so the first part, you nailed that. But I guess the question was, I just kind of wanted to hear the Chad way of, hear the Chad approach to how you would ask, basically, what you would literally be saying them to lead them down, these questions and decision paths. Because I've had, wildly varying experiences when speaking with, homeowners that have been going through, foreclosure, and rightfully so.
You have one fresh in your head?
So the last one I spoke with, I tried a remix of something I'd heard you say. I told them that, I know that this was, it could be a touchy conversation. I didn't want to rehash something that they'd already heard a lot. And, I was literally looking at I was looking at the mind map and just trying to, just work my way through it. But when I got to the part where I was asking, if there was equity, she kind of clammed up on me. She, didn't really want to share.
You will on the role play? All right, let's go. So you know your scenario. I know nothing about it other than you're in default. Let's do some assumptions to set the stage. I don't know if you have equity in your home. I haven't done the research on the asset, but I do know that you have an NOD. So you're at least 3 months behind on payments, because that's the list I found you from. That fits the scenario that you're talking about, right? Okay. Ring.
Hello.
Hi, I'm trying to reach Balcom.
Speaking.
My name's Chad Corbett. We don't know each other yet, but I did get your name from, I'm sure you can guess where, because I'm sure you've had this conversation, a similar conversation I noticed that you do have a notice of default on public record. We were down at the courthouse pulling some data, and I just want to preface this with this. This is a different type of conversation than you've probably had. We are a social enterprise here in the Roanoke Valley, and we try to reach out to families that are in tough situations because we have a lot of resources and teams of people, a team of people that was built were specifically to help people save their homes, and sometimes, move on to the next chapter of life. So have you got just a few minutes to chat?
Yeah, I've got a few minutes.
Okay. I'm guessing you've heard from some other people that were trying to find out how they could get the house and this and that, and probably didn't ask you a lot of questions about yourself. If I have your permission, like if you can trust me that I am here trying to help you, and if I can get your permission, I'm going to ask progressively more personal questions because I don't know how to help you until I can really understand your situation. So are you okay trusting me enough that I can ask some kind of sensitive personal questions?
Yeah, for now, yeah.
Okay. And if we get to a point where you say, where you feel like, hey, this is none of his damn business, all I ask for is a transparency. Just tell me that. Okay.
Okay.
One of the first things that we try to determine is, well, let me ask you this. Is your goal to stay in your home, or would you rather move on to another chapter of life?
Well, I mean, I kind of would want to stay here, but it's difficult for me to afford the place now. Obviously, I lost my job due to COVID, so I haven't been
Okay.
able to bills, and
And
yeah,
you're facing unemployment. Your unemployment overlay goes away in less than a month, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So the first thing we try to look for in this situation, if you want to stay there and you don't have an income right now, is there somebody in your family or your group of friends that, well, first of all, would you be willing to ask for financial help from a friend or family? And second, do is there a person like that in your life right now?
At the moment, no.
Okay. Um, when do you think you'll be back to work? Do you have work lined up? What line of work are you in? Is it something, do you expect this to be short term or long term?
I expect to be out of work. It could be some time. I'm a commercial glazer. I work with glass, and I've been putting applications out, but everywhere is pretty tight. Due to all these shutdowns and lockdowns. Nobody's been able to really get any glass in. So everybody's pretty much hurting. So no matter
Sure.
how I put an application, I'm not getting any callbacks. They're all saying the same thing.
Sure. Let me ask you this. And let's just look out the next 6 months to start. Are there any other big purchases you need to make? Like, do you need to replace a family vehicle, or do you need to use your credit for anything in the near future?
No, the car is fine for now. They haven't repossessed that.
Okay. And are you making the payments on your vehicles, and that's okay?
I'm about a month behind on my car payment.
Okay. And do you have a way to keep those current?
Yeah, I'm keeping my car payment current.
Okay. As you can see, we're really worried about your overall situation, but that will bring us back to what is the best thing to do about your living situation. So I'll check in with you from time to time, like based on the kind of questions I've asked so far.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So where we are, we try to look at options. So for you to stay in the home, we've got to find a way to bring the payments current, because at this point in the next 30 to 45 days, the sheriff could be knocking on your door. Have you talked about that with your family? Like, have you really felt that and thought about what logistically what happens when that happened?
Honestly, it's been just so stressful. I've just kind of hid under the cover, hoping it would go away.
So the reason I ask this is, unfortunately, I guess fortunately, because we have an opportunity to have this conversation. We talk to a lot of folks. We try to talk to everybody who's in your situation, because we know there's almost always a solution that we can find through years of experience and tons of great relationships with other professionals here. We can find a way to help you. We can navigate this with you. But the most common thing I see is people just don't do anything. And that inaction usually results in a much more painful end result. And that's the sheriff knocking on the door with a piece of paper in his hand, and, family members crying in a panic to figure out where the hell are we sleeping tonight. And that comes with embarrassment. And, I try to I see my role in large part of how can I help prevent that? Because I sure as hell wouldn't want to be in that position, right? So do you have family members? Do you have suitable housing and other than this? Like if you had to move tonight, what would you do?
Either go to a hotel or sleep in my car.
Okay. So neither of those are a good outcome. So like what I'm seeing is we need to find a way for you to stay in the home as long as possible until we can get some income and then we can get you back on your feet and get you into a rental property. Are you willing to live in a rental for a while?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a few options here. Are you familiar with, do you know, if I say short sale, do you know what that means?
No, I don't.
So a short sale is simply the bank agreeing to take an amount short of what you owe on their home. So how much is what's your balance, the remaining balance on your mortgage? And if they've sent you a statement with penalties and you know, the actual payoff amount, like, do you know what that number is roughly right now?
No, I still owe 80, about 80 on the house.
Okay. And have you spoken to any other real estate professionals that have given you an indication of what the home is worth? Have you had an appraisal or a BPO or a realtor tell you what it's worth?
No, I just had a bunch of people calling me and texting me, telling me they wanted to
Okay.
buy my house.
What do you think it's worth? If you said, all right, I'm okay selling the house, what do you think it's worth today?
I mean, I honestly hadn't really thought about it, but I've seen, houses nearby, from neighbors, fixing up their houses and moving. You know, last one I seen it went for about 150, 160.
Okay. So there's a good chance you have equity. I mean, we could be talking about $80,000 in cash to better your situation, right?
That would be helpful.
All right. Tell me about the condition of the property.
Um, well, as I said, I'm a glazer. So when I first got here, the place it had nothing. It had nothing at all. I, completely redid the patio. I had some contractor buddies of mine, and another buddy of mine that I've worked with is a civil engineer. So we completely redid the back patio. It was all dirt back there before I got here, but now it's a nice finished patio. I've got swinging patio glass doors for the back. There's 2 bathrooms. I've installed frameless glass showers, neo-angle glass showers in both of the bathrooms. The roof's okay. I know that doesn't need to get redone. The shingles are fine. The electric is the electric is good. It's not knob and tube or anything crazy. I'd say that, by my standards, the house is in pretty good condition.
Okay. It sounds like, I mean, it'll qualify for FHA, VA. Like we won't have problems getting financing on the home. It's not in terrible condition. It sounds like it's in great condition. And you've done the right things to actually build equity into it. So this is an easier conversation than if you said, Chad, I owe 150 and I think we could sell it for 130. So when was the last contact you had with the lender? The last letter you got or the last phone conversation you had?
About 4 months ago.
Okay. Do you know if they have scheduled an auction date for your home? Okay. So that's the first thing we need to look at. We need to look at the notice of default and actually see, is there an auction scheduled? If there is, that's going to tell us how short our fuse is. You're beyond the 90-day mark. So in the state of Virginia, you could be less than 30 days from the sheriff, from the courthouse steps and the sheriff knocking on your door. Now, I have a bit of an emergency button. If we need to, if that starts to happen, if we run out of time, I might need you to file bankruptcy. That doesn't mean you have to take it all the way through to a discharge, but it will absolutely put the brakes on this. So if I call you and say you need to file bankruptcy today, I need you to be mentally prepared, emotionally prepared for that. Because that's the only way that with absolute certainty we can stop a sale in its tracks. So if you were in that situation and it's going to spill over into your home loan, your car loans, your other things, but you don't have to finish it, and our bankruptcy attorney can have that conversation with you about what that means. But if we've got days, that's sometimes a tactic we have to use. It's unlikely. I like to have a good strategy in place so we know, I don't call you and just hit you out of the blue and blindside you with something like that. The other option is we could transition it like with a, typically if there's not equity, we'll try to do a short sale, and we can get that contract, we can get the short sale paperwork into a division of the bank that moves it out of their special assets division and over to a distressed assets division, and it kind of stops the clock on all that stuff. So there's ways that we can intervene in that process. Ideally, in this market condition with your home in great condition and such low inventory levels, I don't think we're going to have to use those kind of contingency plans. I think our primary strategy is beautiful photography, really good marketing, a conventional listing. Will price aggressively low to really get attention, and we'll call for offers and sit for 7 days and wait and let them sweat and continue to bid themselves up. So we'll maximize what equity, every bit of equity we can get out of it. We'll pick the best one, and then we'll know we've got about $80,000 to find you a more suitable, an alternative living situation. We've got to kind of verify all this and make sure that that's right. But just based on what I know about your situation right now, I think you're going to be okay, man. Like, I think in the next 30 days, we can get you a closing. I know that it's not the outcome you really want. It's not keeping you in your home. Now, if you had a way to say, Chad, listen, I've got this lump sum of money coming, or I know that I'm going to get this contract at work. There is one more alternative, like either me or some of the investors I work with, we can actually extend a bridge loan to you, like mezzanine financing, to help you get across this. So it would be a short-term loan, and it's a higher interest rate because it's very risky, because we would be taking a second position on the deed. But I have done that before too, where I've actually had to, I've had myself or other investors step in and create a bridge loan. So, for example, if you had a life insurance plan with a cash value that you could cash in, then I would basically be comfortable using that as collateral. If you made me, the beneficiary of that on the promissory note, and then we would go 12 months, and then you would pay me back whatever that was. So just like hypothetically, if you were $10,000 in payments, all the missed payments, then I would advance you $10,000 on a promissory note. That promissory note your obligation would be to make me the beneficiary on that life insurance policy. So there's creative things like that we can do to kind of create bridge loans, but it requires you to have a solution for that income problem. So is there anything like that we haven't talked about that where we might be able to just bridge you and leave you in the home, but I've got to have certainty that you have the ability to repay? Is there anything you can think of, any help or any ways you could make money, any assets you can sell, life insurance policies, anything like that, so we could have a solution for you to stay where you are?
No, I don't really have any assets or anything like that, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, that's okay. As I said, there is a strategy that will work. The good news is you're in a far better position than most. I know it really sucks to move, especially after you've done all that work to the home, but without having you're losing equity by the day as the penalties rack up. We owe the bank more and more and more, right? So the faster we can do this, the better off your family will be in finding your next living situation. So what I would like to do is, it's only, it's early today. I mean, I'm willing to be over there this afternoon, this evening, if you would like to meet. But what I do want to make sure that everyone who's affected by this decision can be present for the conversation. So a lot of times we'll sit down with the entire family, even young children, because I like for them to be able to ask me as a kind of a third party. Sometimes it's helpful for the parents if the real estate professional answers the hard questions, and we may have to play a little bit of good cop, bad cop, right? So this is less stressful on your family when you can say, damn, that's what Chad said we have to do. So then in the child's eyes, you're not taking away their bedroom. You're not taking them out of the school system. So if it's okay with you, I would like for your whole family to be present when we meet and have the conversation, because everyone will be affected. And I don't mind absorbing that. Like if they want to blame me, that's just another way for me to help you. So when could we have everybody together in one room for that conversation?
We can do it tonight.
Okay. How about 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock is perfect. That's dinner time.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, what I'm going to do is dig in and do some research on the notice of default that you've received, if there is a sale date, and also if you could help me by you've gave me a good overview of what the condition of the home, but if I could ask you a few more questions and get a little more specific about it, then I'll be able to do better homework. So when I get there, I'll be able to tell you, here's where I'll place you in the marketplace, and to sell this in a week, we should be around this price. So then we'll dig in a little closer. So what I'm going to do is, quite frankly, a bit of a deeper dive than even an appraiser would go. And I'll have a market absorption analysis showing you what you could expect, how quickly you could expect to sell in each of the price ranges. So have you got just another 15 minutes just to talk about the house? I know this has been mainly a people conversation. I told you it was going to be different, but now it needs to be a house conversation because I think I see the way we're going to get you out.
Yeah, I've got 15 minutes.
And we'll break there. You guys don't need me to hear me interview him about a house. So what I did there, I was trying to make you comfortable and let you know that you weren't the only one. I was trying to let you come to your own conclusion. We found out you had equity, and then that determined the strategy. You're just a conventional sale, and we've got to have some contingency plans in there in case the bank pulls a fast one and it goes to the courthouse steps. We got to be able to stop that. All of that stuff is stuff that I've done in real life. You can do bridge loans, you can file bankruptcies and just not take them all the way through. You can initiate short sales with an investor offer. You can stop foreclosure in its tracks in a matter of hours. But I also, you'll notice in that conversation, I was emotionally preparing them for those things. Like, are you willing to share personal information with me? When the questions get too sensitive, will you be honest and transparent with me? And those things all build trust. And they're just little things that I learned as I picked up over time. But using this approach, I got every single notice of default that would engage with me turned into a deal. Like it's just like, you didn't hit me with any objections, but they typically don't either.
I couldn't. I wanted to.
Yeah. So it's and if you guys, it may be painful for everyone listening to this, like, damn, would he just get to the damn point? But that is the point. Like, slow down. This is a people conversation. Yeah, you get paid to sell houses or buy houses, but when you realize this is a people conversation, the house is the tail end. Like I talk about houses after I've gotten trust and an action, like, so that the person has taken action and said, yes, please come to my home and sit in front of my kids and say this. Okay, now let's talk about the house, because before then the house doesn't freaking matter. It's the people that matter. So that's how I've always approached it. I use this in basically every list. Like, I mean, you guys probably see a lot of similarities how I approach probate. But that's how I handle all of the distressed real estate situations.
That was easily hands down the best. I just can't believe I'm speechless.
Well, I'm glad you got value from it, man.
Thanks as always, man. Okay, I'll get off the mic. I'm sure everybody else has questions.
All right. Who's up next? Who's got a question? Oh, we got a hand up. I missed. Hey, Eddie, you're muted. Feel free to jump in.
There we go. Okay. I just had this idea this morning, and I thought maybe other people could be something that, whether I did it, I set it up, but other people could value from it, is sending out something that's like a pre-made video as part of my letters that says we're going to have a live video, like a webinar. If you're not ready to contact me, if you're not ready to do anything with your house yet, let's create, or jump on a webinar to learn about what you're going to have to do as the personal representative for the estate once you get possession of this house or the property or whatever. And so have like a 15-minute video created talking about the different responsibilities, the options that they can do, selling it on the market, avoiding paying capital gains, whatever it might be, and then have an open Q&A afterwards where people can ask questions. And kind of the idea is, if they start getting too in-depth with questions, being like, hey, that's a little bit more in depth than what I can answer here. Let's schedule a time where we can meet together and kind of go through this. One, have you tried this, or have you ever had anybody try this? And two, what pitfalls do you think that doing that might have? And three, do you think that if I were to make this as like a video thing where other people could do it as part of their marketing, we could just have it so you just show kind of like the video and then answer questions. So it'd be like a once a month thing. They would go out as part of the mailings.
So Rosie isn't here. She's part of a beta that I started back in the spring. And it was actually a 10-touch campaign over 20 weeks. And it was multimedia. So we laid out basically the 10 most frequently asked questions, or the 10 most frequently asked questions / challenges / common behavioral observations in probate. So we had 10 titles, basically 10 video titles. It was used in 3 different ways: a blog post with the corresponding title, a YouTube video, and then a direct mail campaign. So we had 3 medias. So we like that subject line, why you need an attorney in probate. We'll just say, for example, would be week number 1. So that gets, you make at least a long form blog post, like write as much as you can to get it to index and make Google happy. You make a YouTube video. That YouTube video gets embedded. You add the copy to WordPress and you publish. You then take a screenshot of the YouTube video, set that up on a postcard with the same headline, and fire it off to your list. You then go to Facebook, pull your list into a custom audience, run a video ad with the video and the copy that you've written. So you're using the exact same subject line, the exact same content, but you're getting surface area across 3 different mediums. You're in their mailbox. Oh, and the email was the other part. So you're in their mailbox, you're in their inbox, you're in their like YouTube feed, but you're also on social media. You're paying to present that to them, and we get it done for pennies. Like, to get a video watch is pennies. That is still in progress, and as with a lot of things like this that are new, that are really complex, it's just people get busy. So Grant, who is also not here today, he's part of that, and Rosie is part of that. They have found success with it. But it's the way I laid it out was, it's 10 touches over 3 different, like 1 touch gets scaled up to 3 different jobs. And then every 2 weeks it repeats. So what I found there, it was overwhelming. It doesn't scale well. The idea was to get it to a point where I would just provide it to you as a vetted out solution. So I give you, basically, you go make these videos and we will do the rest. It's challenging because it's complex. It's very different. And it did prove to be effective quickly, but I don't know that it gets too complicated. The reason I told you all that is because this is easy. It's easy to overcomplicate this. In this same vein, and back to what we were talking about before with short sales and foreclosure, one of the best things I ever did, it was the very first time I ever set up I bought a video studio and set up video. This is in early 2012. After I had that first short sale deal, I'm like, holy crap, I just keep having the same conversation over and over. So I just built my first WordPress site. I sat down and I made a series of videos, and I said, all right, what are these sellers asking me? What are their concerns? What is their emotional state? And how can I build trust, but also quit having the same conversation over and over? So I sat down and I made a list of questions or things that needed to be addressed, like how will a short sale affect my credit score? What is a short sale? What happens if I don't do anything? How does the foreclosure process work in Virginia? But all I did was put up 1 page, and it was a super long page. I was a very, very bad WordPress designer at the time, but this worked really, really well. I would have the question, the video, and then a written answer that matched what the video said. And then it would go to the next one. And they were in kind of a progressive fashion. I think there were 19 videos on 1 page, and I would literally have people, I would drop a link on Craigslist, and I would literally have bring the fucking paperwork calls, because people would watch those videos and they would realize I wasn't the typical real estate professional. I had more than one solution and I had their best interest in mind. And I literally would get emails and phone calls with people saying, please, please just bring paperwork and get us out of this situation. To simplify that, it could be as simple as you put up an FAQ page with a series of the most common questions you would like to be asked, because you're not getting the engagement. So maybe like those questions, if I could only talk to them, I would want them to ask me this question, might be the mindset that you lead into the exercise. And just make a page or pages of probate FAQ. And you could have, what is your domain? Do you have one already?
Yeah, mine's Kansas City Legacy Properties.
Okay, so that's too long for a direct
Actually,
mail
it's
campaign.
KC Legacy Properties.
So go out there and buy KC Probate 411.
Okay.
So most people associate 411 with more information, right?
Yeah.
So, or you could do KC Probate FAQ, something that's easy to type from a phone if you're 79 years old and have vision issues, and you get a postcard in the mailbox. Think of that, right? Who is your traffic? So make it an easy domain. Just you can put the page on your main domain, but buy that domain and just redirect. So just as soon as traffic hits, it just pushes to your main domain / probate FAQ. But build that probate FAQ page, drop that in the PS line of every letter you send, drop it in postcards, put it in social media, whatever it is. But that's a much simpler version of what I was talking about. And I've had really good success with that. Now, to go back to another level of complication, but one that I don't believe is overly complicated, I've recently started coaching, and we're having good success building community groups in Facebook. So if you send them a postcard, instead of saying, I'm a real estate professional, this and that, these solutions, what if it's a simple postcard? There's a social enterprise right here in Kansas City that helps families going through life transitions. We've noticed you're currently been appointed as a personal representative of an estate. We'd like to invite you to a live Zoom call every Wednesday night with me and the professional vendors that we have vetted to help the families we serve. Every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. you show up and you transparently put yourself out there, along with your estate planning attorney, your registered investment advisor, your CPAs, whoever it is from your team that you want to highlight. Now, you could do it where it's not in a live format, where it's as a webinar, and they can ask questions and criticize you or whatever it might be, where it's not like this format where if you call me an asshole, I can't edit that out. Everybody heard it, right? But if you do it as a webinar format, you have more control over that. So maybe you just feature a conversation with each of your vendors each Wednesday night at 8, and you archive that, like where you would point them to, register at Kansas City probate411.com. They can register for the recurring and make sure it's recurring, so you're not always having to manage unique Zoom links. But there they can register and they can see all the past calls, and you'll start to build this archive. And by putting it in your marketing, or by putting it all on the same page, your marketing will say, hey, go here to register for this. Once they get there, they'll see the 10 weeks worth of content that you've already done. And that becomes basically it's more robust than an FAQ page. But you'll have a conversation like the gentleman that's doing it now in the Phoenix market. He has a social worker, a grief counselor, a probate attorney, or a estate planning attorney. Like, he's just highlighting those professionals and having those transparent conversations, and then archiving those, and they get uploaded to YouTube and Facebook natively. Then they get embedded onto the site, into a post. So I think that something like that it's work that nobody else is doing. So if you can build a Kansas City life transitions Facebook community, eventually you can invite divorce attorneys. You can serve families who are going through divorce, looking for real estate solutions. You can talk about probate, trust administration. So it scales, right? Is my point. And it's also not that complicated. It's a great reason for you to extend your vendor network. If you say, listen, I've built this group, I'd like to make you an admin of the group so you can grow your business. Would you like to be part of it? Well, now you have a reason to talk to that probate attorney over and over and over, right? You see him every Wednesday night, and you two things. You create frequency, which creates a bond, the relationship, but also you're using the principle of reciprocation to your advantage. Like you had the courage to step out there and create a community resource in his space before he could. Then you're asking him to be part of it instead of competing with him. You're supporting him, right? So the community might be the most bang for the buck, like for your time, like actually doing it in that format. My next suggestion would be go with like the video FAQ long form, just archive all that, buy a domain that's easy to get to, use that in your postcards.
I'm gonna have to rewatch this to get everything that you just said, but I liked all of it. I think that's all the questions I had. Was whatever I do, I'm learning that I need to be consistent. I just finished the book, The Compound Effect, and like whatever, if it stops, that compounding just keeps going away. So every time I do something, I'll have success, and then I have pull back, and then I'm like, if I'm consistent with whatever it is I'm doing for a long enough period of time, it'll be huge.
That's right. And that's the kind of marketing that we're talking about. Like when you're doing these inbound marketing campaigns, that's what we're talking about is inbound marketing. You got to believe, and there's plenty of people we can follow. Like you can read Seth Godin's books. You can read like They Ask You Answer is a really good book, but there's lots of proof out there that value-based content marketing works, but it doesn't happen like overnight. It's not like flipping the switch on a Facebook ad. And you've probably seen that the graphic of an entrepreneur's journey, and it's like the path is all over the place. And just like you admitted, like the reason our path deviates and you have peaks and valleys and all this, it's typically there's only one person to blame, and that's ourselves, right? Like because we get distracted, we go on vacation, our kid gets into the state that goes to a state tournament for this sport or another, and we lose focus, and it's usually our fault. But with these things like the idea of the community group, involving other people in it is a way that I find to hold myself accountable. Like if I had to show up on this call by myself while I'm out here on the banks of this beautiful river in Washington, I knew none of you guys would be here. The chances of me showing up would be slim. I'm like, hell, I'll do that tomorrow. Having you guys here ready to have an engaging conversation makes me want to do it. I freaking love these calls. So that's why I like the Facebook group idea. Is it has typically with most people, it has more runway, more survivability because you're accountable to other people. You're bringing high level professionals in and saying, hey man, I'll be there on Wednesdays at 8:00 to serve our community. Are you going to be there? So then you have to be there, right? And you're both there, so you might as well have an interesting conversation, even if you're just talking to each other for other people to watch. And it's just more sustainable. It's more likely to happen than you approaching something on your own, because we're human. We fall off the wagon, right? Like we know what we need to do. We just don't always do it. So I've found that bringing other people into it to hold you accountable, it's like having a gym buddy, right? Like, hey man, I'll be at the gym every morning, 6 a.m. Like your ass is there. As soon as you lose your gym buddy, it's like, fuck, I'll work out tomorrow. I'm sore. Today's a recovery day. So any way that you can bring other people into it where you have accountability partners, and it doesn't have to be that, you don't have to base the relationship in that, but that's why some of the suggestions I made have other people in them. Yeah, for sure. James, what's on your mind today?
Hey man, just real quick, I know we're coming up on an hour. I went through foundations last week with Bruce. It was really great. I've been through probate mastery several times, but I finally hit the phone. Well, I'm really trying to be consistent with the phones now. I had a VA, but she wound up quitting the company I was utilizing due to health problems. So she got a deal for us within the first 3 weeks. So, I know the phones work. I've been following you guys for 2-3 years. My question is, I called for like 2 hours last Friday. I had two guys pick up the phone, and I was able to look at the county data. I got a VA pulling all the info from me, so I just was searching it as I went through my dialer. Two vacant properties. Both of them said they were open to offers. They do. I kind of hit them with Bruce's, and I guess I would attribute this to you too. Okay, well, it sounds like you're not looking for any help right now. Let me ask you this. Is there any real estate in the estate? And if so, are y'all leaning towards keeping it, or have you considered selling it? Both times that question got me a yes, there is real estate, and you can shoot me an offer, give me another month, that type of kind of follow-up, or, kind of, that was their response. So I got an email from them. I'm going David Pinnell's, I'm taking his course too, where he kind of gives us the layout for the marketing. So I do have the email. My question is, how do I follow up? I got them to say that, they are open to selling. The price points are kind of like 200, 160, 200. They probably want the Zillow, that's kind of where everybody's at. So I'm trying to figure out, how do I loop back around when I call them, say tomorrow or whenever? And how do I follow up with that as far as, I know we talked last week. Can I come out to the property? I'm in the area next, tomorrow. Can I, look at can I walk around the yard, that type of thing, trying to set up an appointment? What do you suggest on that now that I did get a, yes, there is real estate in this?
What's your strategy? Are you looking to hold these or flip them?
My wife's an agent. We both have pretty good day jobs. We're trying to buy a property. I'm taking a creative finance course, so I'm really open to all. I've already done I've done three wholesale deals this year. My first three deals. So, I'm just trying to whatever works. Creative finance might not be a great option right now because everybody's got a shit ton of equity and they all want full retail. So I'm learning creative finance, but I don't know if that's a route I'm going to be able to take frequently.
So creative financing is best in this environment.
Really, I thought it was better in a. Well, I
does
guess
the price matter if the house is free?
No.
Right. So if you can cover your rent and they'll give you the house, take it.
Right.
Even if the price is $200,000 with creative financing, you're buying the payment, not the price. The hell with the price. If you can rent it for $2,500 and you can get your monthly payment down to $2,000, I don't like overpay by 25% because you're not going to be paying it. You're going to put a tenant in there. They're going to pay the mortgage off, and you might not realize your equity gain for 20 years, but don't ever pass up a free house.
Right. Well, my thing is though, like these two guys, I think that like there's a mortgage on one of the houses and one of them's free and clear. How am I going to pitch that to them to say, hey, I know you can go list it as is, because that is an option for them to list it as is and pay agent fees and closing costs. But how can I get them to either wholesale it instead of listing it? Say if it's not a huge, it's feasible for a wholesale, right? Say it's under 200 grand, whatever, kind of beat up or as is condition. How can I get them to go from wanting to list at Zillow price to considering cash offer, or hey, I can get you cashed out. I might be able to get, the creative finance route. Hey, if you're willing to work with me on the timeline, if you're willing to take some payments, for me to pay you off over time, I'll be able to meet that price that you're looking at, if you're willing to work with me on the terms or on the timeline. What's the best way to take them from that Zillow listing as is to a wholesale or a creative finance option, in your opinion?
My opinion is you let them self-select. Balcom is enthusiastically answering you in the chat. So Balcom, you unmute.
All right. Yeah. Hey, how's it going, man? Yeah. So that's something if the chat didn't already say it, that's something, I've invested quite heavily in learning that strategy. But, one of the things that I can say, because, pretty much you can learn how to do wholesale off of TikTok nowadays, right? You've got like 14-year-olds, they're teaching how to do it on TikTok. So as far as wholesaling is concerned, it's getting increasingly difficult because, the market's getting saturated because, there's no regulations, right? So one of the things that I found is that, like with what Chad had just said, creative is the way to go, because if they have a whole lot of equity, when a person has a lot of equity, it's hard for a wholesaler to really work with those margins because they're trying to get the property for 65 cents, 70 cents on the dollar. But with creative, and more specifically Novations, I can give them every bit of what they're asking for, as long as I know that I can turn around and put it on the MLS for higher than I'm getting the property for, right? So let's say, for example, they have a property and they want, let's say 150, but we know that the ARV is, let's say 225. and it's got like, let's say 30,000 in repairs that's necessary, right? So, you know, where most of those sellers are gonna do, they're gonna try to talk them down so that way they can get their max allowable offer in so that they can turn around and give it to the investor, right? Whereas with the Novation, I can say, well, listen, I'll give you everything that you're asking for as long as, you'll meet me halfway and give me terms. You know, part of those terms would be, it's like, okay, well, your house is, your home's value right now as is let's say, 150,000. And part of what we do, and this isn't like the exact script that I'm telling you, but this is just me explaining it to you. But part of what we do is, we come in, we have our own contractor team, we take care of everything. You don't have to deal with realtors, you don't have to deal with listing it, you don't have to deal with showing, you don't have to deal with anything, you don't have to deal with paying for the renovations. I'll take care of everything, and by me doing that, it also avoids me having to deal with, paying like a 6% commission, and I can pass those savings along to him. So by doing that, you're basically telling them like, hey, look, if you want 150, I can give you 150, and I can pretty much guarantee that I can give you the 150 because I'm going to fix this property up myself. I'm going to renovate it, and I'm going to make my money I'm going to make my money off of putting it on the MLS. And, basically what's going to happen is once it closes, right? Once it closes, the seller's going to walk away with the 150 that they wanted, and then you're going to walk away with the excess, right? So like that's something I've been doing in my market. And, granted, it's a little bit, I don't want to say complex, there's some paperwork involved, but, wholesalers aren't going to be able to come anywhere near, they're not going to be able to come near it. So like if you come across a homeowner where, they own the property free and clear, same exact thing. Like this is a scenario a buddy of mine was going through last week. It was the same exact scenario. It was a guy, he owned he had a portfolio of, I believe, 8 properties in Florida. He had 8 properties. He was an older guy, he's about 75 years old, has no kids. So he had, he didn't really, he had nobody to leave the properties behind to. So my buddy's like, okay, well, hey, look, I'd love to, take down the whole portfolio, but, how about we try this? We just start with one, and then, we see how, the one property works. And if everything goes good, we can do the other 6. So the homeowner said, you know what, let's give it a shot. They did the novation agreement. And, my buddy turned around, he made I think he net, after it was all done, he turned around and he net about 20, I think it was 23 and some change after it was all said and done. And what made him able to do it was because he gave the seller exactly what he was asking for. The wholesalers, they couldn't come anywhere near, So the answer to your question is novation, 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 novation. And David even teaches about it in his course. If you haven't bought it, shameless plug. He gives away the strategy where you can get contractors to come in and do the work for free. I'm not gonna say it because I don't know why I'm saying David, but Chad knows what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that thing, I'm doing it right now. It works.
Nice, man. After the call about that.
Feel free. I'm on Facebook.
Cool, man.
Back to the root of your question is how do you get them? So you need to gather more information. You don't have enough. Like if you knew a way to help them, or if you knew enough about their situation, you would know what you can plug in there to make an excuse to get you to the house. So whatever it is, like when you re-engage with them, we can get there to put up no trespassing signs. We can get there to assess the property. We can get there to, introduce them to an estate sale company. There's a lot of reasons to get face to face. You have to, your job when you re-engage with them is just re-engage, learn enough about their situation that you can plug in value and you have a reason to be physically present there. Then you can start having that conversation. Then you choose the strategy. Like engagement is 80%, 90% of this game. Strategy is 10, right? So right. I want to commend you because you are educating yourself where you can actually monetize every conversation. Most folks won't do that. And the fact that you have brokerage taken care of, you are learning creative financing, you're set up to do wholesaling, like you'll be able to help everyone and monetize every conversation. So it's rare. I'm sure you've noticed you don't have a lot of competition when you're at that level where you can use those multiple strategies. But I mean, what I want you to focus on now is like you're getting comfortable with those tactics. Now focus more on the people and learning about their story because they will lead you to the proper tool. Just so Balcom was saying, give them everything they want. Every conversation, like in the beginning, what do they want? What's driving them? Is it fear or is it desire? And fear of what or desire for what? And how can I find a way to get in front of them to take away their fear or feed their desires? And it's, you know, like I said, it's not the house ever. It's about the people and what emotions are driving their behavior and helping them get what they want so you can have what you want.
For sure.
So really focus on the people, and then the reason that you need to be at the house will show up, and it'll be apparent. You'll be like, oh, fuck, I can go over there and put up a no trespassing sign, or I can go over and offer to give them free photography so they can, you know, try to sell it on their own. And I mean, I'll do things like that. Like I've taken photographs, you know, professional photographs of a home for a FSBO just so, and it was a trap. I knew what the outcome was going to be. They get out there, the pictures do their job. They get offers. People lie. They weren't pre-qualified. They didn't sign the contract and then ghosted the seller. The seller's frustrated as hell and they come back and list the house with me. But I led them to their own realization. I didn't sell them anything, right? I provided value to them, let them fight their way through the thorns and come back into the meadow that I was standing in the whole time. And I was the one that actually got the home sold and absorbed all that bullshit that buyers bring. So there's things like that, any little way that you can find to give them value, give them what they want, even if they're in their own way, it comes back to you. But well, guys, listen, I'm going to jump. This was, as always, fun conversations. Hope you guys got a ton from it. I see a lot of new names here we didn't hear from. So you guys, hopefully you got value from this. If it was your first call, work up the courage to introduce yourself and join us next week. But as always, guys, thanks for being part of the community and being an engaging, fun crowd. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.
Thanks, Chad. You too.